Okay, Rabbi Kaplan.
What I'm saying, so the Gra says, so this boy said over the word from the Gra that he says Shesh Yomim Te'asa Malacha means the 6 Yomim, days of Yom Tiv, that you can do Malacha of Ochel Nefesh, which is the first and last day of Pesach, and Shavuos is 3, and the first and last day of Sukkot is 5, and Rosh Hashanah is 6. You could do Ochel Nefesh in these days. Shabbos, and because on Yom Kippur, that's a Yom Tov when you can't do Ochel Nefesh. Very good. So I'm asking, if you read that word, you could read like on the spot or right before the Shabbos meal, and you could say it over. But you could prepare it. That means that Friday you go around thinking about the word, thinking about it. The simple, it sounds so simple, but no, there's no such thing as simple in Torah. Every nekuda of Torah is ein lo sof. It says, L'chol tichla reisi keit rechova mitzvos chamod. And it says, Aruch Meretz mido rechova minayam. The Torah is there's no end to the Torah. And I heard once from Rav Moshe Salant, he said, it doesn't just mean the whole Torah, there's no end. It means every piece of Torah has no end. And if you start thinking, why did the Torah be meramis to this, that there are 6 days of Yom Tov, you can do Ochel Nefesh and Yom Kippur, you can't. Why? It's a very good remes. The remes fits into the pasuk, but why did the Torah give us this remes? Why not? So think about it, and think. Just say over the kasha a few times to yourself, and maybe all of a sudden an answer will come to your head. And if an answer won't come to your head, it's also good. You say over the word, and you say over the question, but you'll see that you say it over a whole different way if you prepared it the way I'm saying. And it doesn't take too much time. Everybody has extra minutes on Friday. Besides one brisker that I know that lives in Givat Shul, that he told me that he sat and learned the whole day Friday, and he came home at 5 o'clock, and he found his wife working so hard for Shabbos, and she did everything, and he sat and learned. Okay, we're not talking about Yechidei Skula. I even saw somebody by the name of Dov Zupnik. I saw him going shopping on Friday. So if he goes shopping, everybody's allowed to go shopping. The Gemara says in Yevamos, Odom Mevi Chitim, a person brings into the house Chitim and the wife grinds it. But the man brings the food from the store, the wife stays home. So while you're in the store and you're standing in line, and you think about this word, and even if you don't know what to think, you're not a genius that the mind keeps bubbling and working and being machadish chidushim every minute. But just by saying it over a few times, you'll see that you're living it, you're feeling it, it's coming out of you. It's not that you're just a tape recorder of the sefer. And then you might ask what the question you ask, what do you need this remes for? And if you don't have an answer, it's also good. So then the wife will say, so what's the answer? So he'll say, I really don't know. I thought about it. I don't know. Does anybody can say anything? And some of the children might say something, lo la'inyan. They might say something that has nothing to do. But it's all right. You don't have to tell the child, oh no, that doesn't answer the question. No. You don't have to do that because it's not a class where you're teaching. So, like there are houses where the father would say, no, that's not the right answer. But I wouldn't do that. I would say, oh, so what you're saying is this and this. Well, you think it answers the question? I don't know, I'm not so sure. And you try to fix it up and make it answer the question. Maybe you mean this, and maybe you mean that. And even if he's wrong and it doesn't answer at all, but he did say something, so from there you could take off and go further. And before you even say the word, you might start an introduction. Like some people would just say, the Gross it says Sheishis Yomim. But you don't have to say it like that. You could say, the Pasuk, there's a Parshas Hamados in today's Parsha. And it's half of the Parsha. All the Yomim Tovim are here.
Rav Kaplan, of course, you know the famous Vort, I can't resist it, that Purim and Hanukkah and Yom Ha'atzmaut are also in this Parsha.
After the Madas, there's the Hadlakas Neirush, and then there's V'lokach the Solas, that's Purim. Hadlakas Neirush, of course, Hanukkah, and then V'lokach the Solas, that's the Lechem Aponim, that's Purim. Why?
Suda.
Why?
A Suda.
Suda, okay. V'lokach the Solas, the Lechem Aponim is a Suda, it's Purim. And afterwards comes the Parsha of Megadev, that's Yom Ha'atzmaut, beautiful. I mean, if you say that over at your Shabbos table, you're really gonna bring in a chiyush into the house. It'll be lively. And then you could ask, does anybody happen to know what Yom Ha'atzmaut is? Does anybody happen to know why it's Goyish? Why it's not Jewish, why it has to do with the Megadif. I'm sure from there will be a very interesting, stimulating conversation, which is what I'm looking for. And then you go off the subject, but everybody will get into it. The Dvar Torah was only what you prepared. That was only to launch, to start out. It's the runway, but you could take off and it'll happen that you'll get into all kinds of other subjects. Many times it happened to me that I started saying over what I prepared, but I made enough introductions, that the introduction alone was so interesting that everybody got in, joined in the conversation, the Torah-dic conversation. I never got to say the word. And it didn't bother me. I didn't come and say, I'm the teacher over here, let me say. No! As long as there was what we call Hamon Chogeg, as long as it was lively, it was stimulating, it was bubbling, everybody was involved, and it was around something Torah-dic. So that's called that you were successful in running your Shabbos table. Or for example, you would give an introduction about this parsha has in it Parshas Hamados, and the Torah gives all the Yomim Tovim. This is the first time the Torah gives a list of Yomim Tovim, and then all of a sudden it'll enter your mind. The first time. How much of Torah did we learn till now that we could say the first time? Actually, we learned more than half of the Torah, because we know that Darash is half of the words, and that's Parshas Shmini. So we already, quite a few weeks ago, we already reached half of the Torah. Now we're how many? Tazriah, Metzarach, Remus, Kadosh, we're four and a half Parshas after half of the Torah, and we didn't have the list of Moadas yet. So it's already, but that might enter your mind right as you're talking. So the meanwhile, you talked about half of the Torah, and you talked about Darash, and from there you might get off the subject into something else and forget where you even started. But that's all legitimate, because we're not teaching over here. We're having stimulating Torah-dic conversation. Remember, this is the key word of tonight's talk. Stimulating Torah-dic conversation at the Shabbos table. That's what's going to happen. Or you might talk to the 4-year-old, let's say, and you'll start saying to him, the Torah gives a list of all the Yomim Tovim here. What does Yom Tov mean? Now, of course, if the child grew up in Eretz Yisrael, he's going to know. Yom Tov, a good day. Ooh, that is a lot what you could talk about. What does it mean, a good day? It means there's such a thing as a bad day. What is a bad day? What is a good day? And from there you could go all together off this subject. But But as I say, there's no subject because this is not a classroom over here. So you might talk about good days and bad days. All of a sudden, that'll enter your mind. And you might even say, yesterday I had a bad day, and you'll talk about your experience. And you might even ask one of the children, did you ever have bad days? And then the wife will say, of course, what are you teaching them? What are you teaching them such things, good days, bad days? Children always have good days. But you have to put such ideas in their mind. And then you have a conversation with your wife. Should you put such ideas in their mind or not? Or you might have an argument with your wife, and you might create tension with your wife, and who knows what it'll lead to. Of course, it all depends if you drank something or you didn't drink something. And you have to be very careful. But you could also say to your wife, well, maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. We shouldn't really bring this subject up. And as soon as you say that, the older child, the 12-year-old, is going to say, oh, what shouldn't you bring up? What was it? You understand? If you say shouldn't bring it up, of course it becomes very interesting. So you'll talk about it in a more, how do you say it, a modified way. It shouldn't sound bad, like don't talk about your own the bad days you have. Just talk about something that has to do with a child. But all this, look how interesting it is.
Rabbi Kaplan.
What?
I believe there's a pasuk in Koheles, maybe the Yom Tov and then a Yom Ra.
Yom Ra Re'eh, Gam Hazel Umazeh also Elokim. Right? And Shlomo HaMelech says that there are good days and there's a Yom Ra. Okay, so and let's say you have older children. This could become a whole conversation about Yom Tov and Yom Ra and what to do and how to do. And you might forget where you came from and get off the subject. But that's it's very good if that happens. Because that means that they took part and they got interested and they were stimulated and the family was united in stimulating Torah conversation. And that's the tachlis. That's the rosa de echad that happens at the Shabbos table between a family. And again, as I say, there are many nisyonos that come up when you're doing things the best way and the right way. So the vayovu gam hasoten b'socham, the arizal also comes in, and he tries to be. And like I said, it's very easy. And depends who the wife is, because there are wives that they're so gentle and so soft and so harmonious that they'll let their husband say whatever he wants, which maybe it's not so good to be too extreme like that. She should put certain limits on him because sometimes he gets carried away. But what I know of a woman that's so tough that she'll right away say to her husband, you don't bring up such things in front of the children. You don't have to teach them negativity. And that brings tension, and who knows where that could lead to. You need siyata d'shmaya. Without siyata d'shmaya, nothing is going to go. But when you prepare the way I was just describing, that's making a kli, making on what the rosa de echad of the Shabbos table can be chal. And as I was saying, you could ask the little child, you know what Yom Tov means? And you might even say over what Rab Tzadok HaKohen says, when you say Yom Tov, when you mean Yom Tov, you mean it means the Or Ki Tov, the first place that it says Tov in the Torah is by the Or HaGonus. And the Yomim Tovim are days that the Or HaGonus that was in the first 4 days of the world, that Or HaGonus is shining. And a person could see me so folam lad so phone deep in yonim. And these deepest in yonim, you can talk about it to a 4-year-old. You could lower it to his
Rabbi Kaplan, we're going to take a break. Thank you.